The reason why the Democrats don't talk about Malcolm X is because Malcolm X was he
said
was
a lot of
woke
stuff
on the Democratic Party.
Right.
In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you.
It's interesting, you get this 1 month out of the year where we just name off a bunch of key black people, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But we don't, but even within Black History Month, we talk about all the liberal black leaders. So if you're going to talk about Black History Month, you might want to go ahead and add in all the others.
How long is this country going to deny these people a voice that could actually help a lot of black people think differently?
So we're back with our second topic. Now, I do want to call it boycott. It looks like it should be that.
Political. I don't
it's
know.
Weird.
Every time you hear black people talk, we're talking about boycotting and civil rights stuff. And so when you talk about black Republicans, then it's not about that anymore.
Right.
And so that's where my mind goes. I'm looking at black people, but I'm not hearing the same rhetoric.
Right. It's a totally different thing. What we're talking about, though, is Uncle Tom. The documentary, okay, so have you guys seen the documentary Uncle Tom? It has all the heavy hitter kind of black Republicans in there.
My parents didn't teach me that I was a victim.
They can turn back voting rights. Didn't nobody donate to us the right to vote?
You was your house nigga. I didn't call you a nigga.
Oh, okay, that's a big difference.
You're Uncle Tom.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out by embracing the white man.
Uncle Tom,
Bedwench,
bootlicker,
black white supremacist,
chucking and jiving,
house Negro,
coon,
Uncle Tom,
coon.
I have a Coon Award over there. Coon of the Year Award. Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
Racist,
Racial, racist,
racism. 1,000 cuts of racism.
The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
I never felt that because I was black or I was poor or a woman that I couldn't do something.
I grew up being told of my disadvantages, that this country is unfair to black people.
The ideology is implanted into you subconsciously to believe these things.
It's like a cancerous plague in the mind of black Americans.
We're brainwashed to think, well, is it because I'm black?
America's not ours, or we got shipped here. No. Our blood is on this soil. We own this too.
There should be a pride that we have in the fact that this country was built by many great black men and women.
Are you trying to say that this country does not specialize in racism and bigotry?
So long as black people continue to have their psyche filled by that nonsense, we won't have an awakening.
Well, Larry Elder is he's the one. He made the movie.
Yeah, he made the movie. Anyways, it's a really good documentary. I will link it below if I can find the link. This is a very eye-opening thing because we felt like when we were watching this, like this is exactly what I feel like.
Me. I didn't know other black people felt like this.
It's exactly what I feel like. It's as if when you're a black conservative person, which by the way, y'all, we weren't. We were liberal Democratic people until we realized that what are we even talking about? Our views don't even align with the party in which we are aligned with.
Which, by the way, most black people that are Republicans were Democrats.
Yeah.
So they felt just like us.
Yeah.
They thought,
what are you talking about? So I do remember, and everyone that was talking in that film was like, black Republicans, this just doesn't make sense. Right? That's some of the things that I used to say. It doesn't make sense. Or black conservatives, doesn't make any sense. The difference between the two are so vast, and then you start to realize. Here's the eye-opening part to me with that film. Is that black people are not taught about a lot of the black Republicans and black conservatives from years and decades and decades. I mean, we're talking about Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell,
but like Walter Williams, who was always a Republican, you know, and I even think he may be more of a libertarian, but yeah, I mean, even when we talk about Booker T. Washington, you don't really hear about Booker T. Washington as much as you should anymore. I mean, pretty soon you're not going to really, you know, hear about a lot of people that
lean conservative. The thing is that we don't hear about all these other people, all these other conservatives. And then I think on there was Brandon Tatum was on there. You guys watch Officer Tatum here on YouTube? He was on there on the documentary, and he was saying this whole family of people out here, this whole group of people who make total sense, and you never heard about them ever because it was all suppressed. They never talked about them. And I do feel like, I think a couple of them said this in the film, that if America acknowledged these people the way they acknowledged the Martin Luther Kings and all this, I feel like black people would be thinking differently right now.
Well, I mean, the vote would definitely be more split.
It would be.
There would be.
It would be 95%.
Right. I mean, there's a reason why Democrats don't really talk about Malcolm X, but they talk about Martin Luther King. You know, Malcolm X really was against. It was against the Democratic Party. Well, he was very cautious of that.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness. The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first, and they put you last. Because you're a chump, a political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you because you're a chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race. And what kind of alibi do they come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Dixiecrats. Now, back during the days when you were blind, deaf, and dumb, ignorant, politically immature, naturally you went along with that. But today, as your eyes come open and you develop political maturity, you're able to see and think for yourself. And you can see that a Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat in disguise.
Right.
After the Great Depression, when FDR took over, a lot of black people went to the liberal side because we were in a Great Depression, and he made up things like the Social Security. He did a lot of social programs.
Yeah.
And so a lot of black people started to become, because of the Great Depression, became Democrats. But most of the country was, because we were in a Great Depression. And then when LBJ started the war on poverty and did the Welfare Act, which then he signed into law, which then, I guess, brought more blacks over, along with Martin Luther King.
It seems like that's the turning point, because even during Jim Crow, black people were still together as a family unit. They were working. It just seemed like the nuclear family, the unit, was intact. It seemed also that the community of black people was intact. Because of Jim Crow, there was a lot of oppression and suppression within that. But still, even in that, it was working. You know what I mean? Like, they were working together to figure this out. Churches were still going. All this was still happening. And then it seems like when it actually split into this welfare, the social programs started to happen, that seems to be where we started to divide. We started to kind of move apart from each other. Yeah. Because then, when you get welfare, the father has to be out of the home. So you see the breakup of family. So and right out the gate, we're breaking up the family. You know what I mean? We're breaking up the family. So you see that, and then it just kind of escalates from there. Even like Jim Crow time, I would guess that they would have more. They were behaving more conservative then.
Well,
they were doing more conservative.
Even during
the
JFK,
country was more conservative.
Well, I mean,
you know?
even JFK was a conservative Democrat.
Yeah,
Most people were conservative, but the Democrats made more headway during FDR because we were in a Great Depression. So black people started to vote Democrat much more than they did prior. But then when Martin Luther King was working with the Democratic Party, not JFK, but LBJ signed the Welfare Act. Then most black people felt like, it looked as though he was doing something to help society.
It looked charitable.
But the conditions, and they all would, they'd have the people walk into people's houses and telling them, hey, women, if you don't have a husband, you'll be able to get this certain amount of money. It looked like a charitable act, but what it really did was drive men away from their responsibilities, and it made women marry the government. Yeah. So for our community, it really hurt us. This is the reason why our single mother rates in the 70s.
Right
now, it's really damaged us, but we don't really look at I guess we still sort of think that this party is on our side.
It's really weird.
I don't think it really ever has been.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is the documentary kind of pinpoints that part of it.
Well,
the brainwashing of it all is all very shocking.
I look at welfare as modern slavery.
Yes,
in my opinion,
is.
Because I think that it makes people
and Democratic Party is like a plantation.
Right. I look at it as like a form of modern slavery because it makes people sort of depend on something. You know what I mean? I think that if the party was really trying to help anyone, they'd show you how to make it yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just like if you're not going to show people how to make it themselves, and you're just going to keep giving them checks.
Right.
Bad checks, not even good money. You know what I mean? Bad checks just to not do anything. It's for a lot of people, it would be worth it to not do anything.
Yeah,
you'd make more money for them, and they're thinking, it's making more money just to sit here than it would be for me to go out there and try to hustle, make a job, or create a business, get a job that work hard at it. But
the conservative party is more of pick yourself up by your boots. They're more of a pick yourself up by your bootstraps type of a party. Yeah, the conservative party, and so naturally, in Kara, not knowing this, even as Democrats. Before not knowing this is that Karen and I have always been pick yourself up by your bootstraps type person. We've always kind of done that anyways. But you said this in a video before that was interesting. You said that I voted, and I did the same thing. I voted basically for what would help other people. And what you're supposed to do when you vote is vote your own conscience, not the necessarily everyone else's, because everyone else has a different way of living and a different thought process. And so I think that because I was like, I don't believe in abortion, I would not do abortion, but I was voting for pro-choice because I'm saying I don't want to tell someone that they can't get an abortion, right? So it's like I wasn't, even with that, even that's conservative about me. I didn't even realize. When you realize it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, then I'm going to have to rethink and regroup about what I'm aligning myself with. Yeah. Because if you're only voting, if you're only aligned to a party that is black dominated, basically, voting wise, you don't really think to kind of listen to the other way. And so what's happened in recent years is that I've decided, and it really was only because the Democrats have gone so crazy. They've gone so far off the mark. That's the only reason why I was able to now look at the other side and listen to what they have to say in comparison, at least to the Democratic Party. So it's interesting. Yeah. Because once you say that you're a conservative person and you're black, you will be considered, like they said, to be Uncle Tom. You are, the bed wench of the, you're betrayed the black people.
And I don't get offended by that because most of liberal policies are white liberals policies.
Yeah, right.
Black people
follow.
So, I don't really care too much about that. You call them Uncle Tom too if you want to, but I don't like calling names.
Right.
I like, move on. But I don't know. I think I voted, basically I thought what was good for the good of other people, but maybe it isn't the good for other people. Yeah. Maybe it'd be better if we didn't have welfare.
Yeah.
I would like to say that women with kids probably need it, but my mother had two.
Yeah.
She wasn't even 20 years old when she had to. And somehow she, made them. I'm not saying it was hard. It wasn't hard, but I'm just saying that I see a lot of people that are on welfare. They're not making good choices. I remember whenever I go to the grocery store and I see like people buy like food stamp stuff, they always got like 3 carts, but it's just the worst food. It's like they always have like tons of like soda and these like juices and
packaged everything,
foods. And I'm not sure. I don't know what the welfare system gets as far as
what you're allowed to get.
What you're allowed to get. But what I'm saying is, if it was to help, even if that was true, say you couldn't buy like good for you stuff, then why do you think a government would not allow you to buy that? They want you to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
They want you to be,
so
because what you eat. Yeah. What you eat is what you eat and what you consume can change the way you think. You know what I mean? And so if I'm a person that wants to control a bunch of people with a limited amount of money, I'm letting them eat crap because so their minds can be crap. You know what I mean? And look, I'm not ignoring that. We definitely couldn't get rid of welfare now. So many people are on it, and it would displace a lot of people. So I wouldn't, say that. But I do think that it hasn't really helped us at all.
Yeah.
Very few people get off of it and then stay off it forever. Most of them come back and go, and then some people they're generational.
I just think there should be some limits on a lot of stuff. I think smaller government is better. I don't think government should be involved in everything, which...
Not only that, even with the vaccine. I don't want somebody telling me to take a vaccine. I don't want somebody giving me a limited amount of groceries I'm supposed to buy. I don't want someone telling me, like they want to do with the Second Amendment, they want gun control. I don't want somebody telling me what I can do.
This shows you the brainwashing of it, though, right? Because I have always been pro-life, but didn't say that I was doing pro-choice for others, right? Pro-life. I believe in the Second Amendment, gun rights. I'm good with capitalism.
I like capitalism.
I think that it works when it's done correctly. Patrolling our borders. These are all things when I was a Democrat. I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about when I was a Democrat. These are all things that I actually felt were important to this country. These are all things that I felt were important personally. But for a long time, I was Democrat and liberal, knowing that I'm thinking just like that.
When you've got 90 to 95% of black voters voting one way, there has to be some brainwashing in that.
Has to be.
You know what I mean? Because we all are a monolith. We can't all be thinking the same. We can't all be living the same. There has to be something that's keeping us binded in that. And I think it has to do with churches, black culture, Martin Luther King, schools, just this idea that like we shall overcome, where we feel like some allegiance to the civil rights era, that if we leave them, and we're leaving the party or something. But the thing is we have overcome. We just need to overcome.
Does that slightly mention?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we need to overcome.
We need to mentally overcome.
Let go and start to move forward.
But I think that when you say that as a black person, when you say you need to let go and overcome. So to me, that just sounds completely logical. Right? We're moving forward, okay? Not forgetting, but moving forward. So when black liberals hear black, conservatives say that, they're thinking that what we're saying is that you're going to act like slavery never happened. See, everything about slavery with black people. Black liberals, everything was back to slavery. Everything. And I'm like, no. What I'm saying is that don't forget about that stuff, but honor your ancestors. Honor that by doing well. Honor that by not being a slave to to the system.
I look at our people. I look at it as they paid a price so I wouldn't have to.
Right.
And so that's how I see it. I don't look at it as a way that I use it to weaponize myself against white people who are having to work hard. You know what I mean? I think that we're supposed to work hard. You know what I mean? We're only guaranteed opportunities. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of capitalism. That's the beauty of our country. Is that we're only guaranteed opportunities, and that's all you should ever want is an opportunity. And that's what all of the people that came before us fought for. Just opportunity. They didn't come for us to have the outcomes to be the same, because the outcome really depends on how hard you want to work. All white people don't become successful because all white people aren't the same. All white people don't work the same. All white people don't have the same backgrounds. You know what I mean? As far as family is concerned, the same thing with black people. people, Hispanic people, and Asian people. We don't all work the same, hustle the same, and do the same. You know what I mean? We all work differently, so the outcomes are not going to be the same. And the fact that we do have an inequality, like things like where there are poor people, middle class people, that really shows that it is fair, kind of. Because if it wasn't fair, because if it wasn't different like that, then that would mean that we were all the same, which means that we really don't have freedom. Freedom is really shown in the fact that we're all different, and that we all, you know, we all have.
Otherwise,
if you just look at the white people's white people's demographics, is that they're not all rich, they're not all poor, and in fact, the richest people in this country are Asians. So it's just like, so if you look at them, they're not all rich, they're not all poor, they're not all middle class. You know what I mean? They're not all born with two-parent homes. Some of them have single-parent homes. Well, some white people, a lot of white people are on the welfare as well. And so that right there shows you that the country gives opportunity, because in our country, you don't have to die. You can come in this country, come into this world poor, but you don't got to die that way.
In our country, affords you that right. Right. So we're not, you know, it's not Sharia law here.
Yeah.
Where you have to do, you can have any religion you want to. You can do anything you want to. So the idea of staying stuck in the past, like I've heard black people say, you know, I think black people have PTSD from slavery. And I'm like, no, PTSD is supposed to be a direct link to whatever the trauma was.
That's something you experienced.
Yes, a direct link to you to a trauma. So I think that there is a disconnect with black people, and there may be a debate, and may be an argument to say that we were supposed to be pitted against each other from the beginning, and now here we are, and it worked. So I can understand that. But what the part that gets me, that I can't, is that once you've overcome, and we have had black millionaires, billionaires. We've had successful politicians. We've had successful black president. And then forget about even work. Successful black families. That's the part where I'm saying is that how did those black people, if they're not saying that they had PTSD with the slavery thing, how did they get through it?
But I'm willing to say that that black people had it hard in the past, but I'm not going to say that the breakdown of the black family was due to slavery, because slaves were actually intact. Their families were intact. If it hadn't been for them being sold, they would still. But most black people that were slaves, they lived with their mother, their father, and their kid. But had it not been for the selling, then the families would have been intact then. There's this generations of people that aren't being talked about. It's like we go from slavery, we jump all the way over that, we go right to the 60s. And the thing is that most black families were intact, and that is really the reason why we aren't succeeding in the country. If you look at Asian Americans and their demographics, they have no representation really in politics at all.
They're intact.
They're the most successful in school, in education, and they're the most intact family. In our country, not even white people. They go above white people as far as an intact family. There's not a lot of divorce within Asian families, but also they prioritize school. And in their families, and there isn't but when you look at those things where they prioritize family and school, and then their economic growth goes up, you also find that they're also the least likely to commit a crime. They don't go to jail. There aren't tons of Asian people sitting in prison. So the idea of that, the fact that they're able to really focus on school and family, really shows in the demographics as far as success and the jail population.
So there's a clear sense of community there. Even if they don't know obviously they don't know each other. There's a sense of community with Asians and Hispanic people, white people. There is a sense of community there. Even Jewish people and all that. It's black people where the community, the sense of community is not there.
I hate bringing up feminism, but I do think feminism it broke us up. I mean, we were mostly intact in the 40s.
The 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s,
60s into slavery. We were mostly intact. You know, even Walter Williams and Tom Sowell, who were friends, they both said that they came from single mothers, and they were kids in the 30s and 40s. But they said that was unusual. They even said it to each other. That was unusual and unheard of for a kid to not have a father in the home. In the black community, it was unheard of. So they were just like, there were not very many people. There weren't very many black people that were black women that were single mothers. But the family was intact. And I think there was, at some point, even in the 50s, black people, as far as business is concerned, we were outpacing white people.
And
but they don't. That's an inconvenient truth, though, and the Democratic Party doesn't really like to talk about that. You know,
we skip that though. It's just funny is that they skip that whole part, and then they move on. They move on to like now.
But slavery was a Democratic policy.
Which they don't talk about that either.
Jim Crow was a Democratic policy, so it would make sense to me that the welfare community made by a Democrat would break up our families. If you can see, if I'm telling you that we were doing well into like the mid '60s as far as family unity, and then all of a sudden this neutron bomb is, as Larry Elder calls it, gets dropped. Right. Called the welfare. Gets dropped into our community. Pulls the man out, and makes the woman marry the community. Right. Then it makes sense that may sound still kind of racist. Yeah. You know what I mean? That the party really has not changed. Not really. People should. I never heard of Larry Elder. I'm sorry, I have heard of Larry. I never heard of Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams until maybe 5 years ago. Yeah. How could I have gone my whole life and know about Frederick Douglass and know about Martin Luther King and know about Harriet Tubman, but we forget about these two economists that are considered highly credible, and not just the black community, the white community too, like in America.
They talk about Jesse Jackson,
and we don't ever hear about Al Sharpton. We don't ever hear about Walter Williams. We hear about Jesse Jackson. We don't ever hear about Thomas Sowell.
So my theory on this though is that they didn't really want black people hearing black people talk like Thomas and Walter and Larry. They didn't want black people hearing that type of talk. That's progressive, kind of like moving forward, taking responsibility and accountability. Going after your dreams type talk. You know what I mean? They didn't really want us doing that because they needed black people to stay in their place, stay in the Democratic Party, so we can get those Democratic votes. If black people in that time, if we had known about the Walter Williams, all these people, we would have expanded our minds.
There's a reason why they don't ever talk about these guys.
Yeah, they don't want our minds to be expanded.
They don't want us feeling free to make our own decisions, to pull ourselves up. I was watching Reverend Ike, and Reverend Ike was on, I think, the Mike Douglas show. You can look up on YouTube. It's pretty interesting, because he always gets tired. He gets lumped into this prosperity preacher who only thinks about money because he has Rolls Royces. But the truth is, what he's saying is facts. I mean, what he's saying is he said, I don't really believe in the welfare system. He said the welfare system is a modern day slavery, and I 100% agree with that, of course. But he said it is, but this was back in the 70s. So he was saying, he's just like, I think that when you don't show people how to make it on their own, you make them dependent on you forever. He said, and for my community, he's black. He said, for my community, he's like, it is detrimental to allow us to consume handouts and not show, people. So the black girl stood in the audience and said, well, what are you doing? Because his ministry was like $6 million. She said, what are you doing? What kind of money are you going to have to help other people? He's just like, he doesn't tell people that he helps people because he doesn't want people to come over with the handout mentality. And I understand that. He said, we do help people. We send kids to college and we do that. He said, but my point in saying this is that I don't really talk about myself helping people all of the time because I don't want people to think that because I have money you can come over and get a handout from me. He said what I would rather show people and what I do with my books and what I do with my ministry, the science of living is what he calls it, is to show particularly black people how to get up in the world, how to help yourself. And how to help yourself, because that's what's really important. You don't want to be on the system forever. No, but we don't know. My point in saying this is that these are extraordinary black people that I think black young people, particularly high school students and just grade school, should know about all of these people. The reason why the Democrats don't talk about Malcolm X is because Malcolm X was he was woke on the Democratic Party. Right. He knew, what was up, and he was right about almost all of it. You know what I mean? So the thing is, it's just like, I just think that we need to have a fair, especially when schools, even when we talk about slavery, we need to talk about slavery in its entirety, not just what as it pertains to America. Right. We need to understand of how we got here.
It's interesting, you get this 1 month out of the year where we just name off a bunch of key black people, but even within Black History Month, we talk about all the liberal black leaders. We never talk about, if you're going to talk about Black History Month, you might want to go ahead and add in all the others. Add in the Walter Williams, the Thomas, so you have to add in all of these people, the Larry Elders,
I mean, Walter Williams died last year. This man lived and died
no,
without most black people knowing who he is.
Thomas is what?
You know what I mean?
91? 91. No one's ever heard of this man. This man's a magnificent mind.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Elder's 70. You know what I mean? It's just like, how long is this country going to deny these people a voice that could actually help a lot of black people think differently?
But why are they not talking about that during Black History? Okay, Black History Month is a month. Okay, fine, it's there. It's happening. But why don't they talk about those people? They're black and they're successful.
No, because I don't think that they. I feel like they just don't want us to know about the success of these people. Like when you educate yourself on things you didn't know,
that's when you.
Then that's when you start to realize and you start to put things together. You know what I mean? You start thinking, oh, when Democrats came, that's when we started getting black politicians. No, Republicans were the first people to put black people in office.
Yeah.
The thing that I think the Republican Party does wrong is that they don't represent themselves diverse enough.
Yeah.
Where I think they feel, like I said before, I think they feel that black people are not coming over here and they've given up on trying to. They don't pander to us. So they've given up on trying to get us to the party because they really feel like the Democratic Party has a hold of us. And they do. I mean, when you look at the Democrats, the people who vote Democrat, that is a very hard battle. They've gotten to us.
Yeah.
They've gotten to our soul. The way we think. They're in our churches. They're in our, you know what I mean?
Schools.
Right. So we see it all the time. So that's what they do wrong. But what
But that's what also real quick. That's what I liked about the documentary is that they actually talked about that.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of times what happens is if you watch some documentaries that are like this, especially politically based, they won't call out their own party. Yeah. And I believe that you should call out your own party when you see something that's not right. So that is a criticism that I would make with the Republican Party is that they have kind of like, okay, well, black people are never going to come over here, so that's not our base. Let's just eventually. Now, eventually happened because now black people are starting to understand.
Black men for sure.
Black men for sure. So there's a lot of Republican black people now are starting to see that the Democratic Party is not really doing much for them whatsoever. In fact, doing things honestly against their own beliefs. So if I were to call out the party in any way, I would say Republican Party, I would say they should have done a better job this whole time.
Like you kind of have to do your own research before you pull levers for people because you might be voting against your own interests thinking that you're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? And that was my thing, is that I didn't realize how much I was voting against my own interests.
When I was a Democrat, I was challenged to look at the Democratic platform, and I was also challenged to look at the Libertarian platform, and look at the Green Party, and then look at the Republican.
I was a Bernie Sanders supporter.
That's where I was. I was left.
I don't know why I was, but I was.
Right, and so that challenge, someone challenged me to at least look at the platform of the party that I was pulling the lever for. That changed me because it's like, well, I'm voting against my own interest.
Yeah.
This whole time, I'm just voting against my own interest. And then when you look over to the right and you're thinking, I didn't even give Republican I didn't even give them a thought. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some people like you think about, maybe Libertarian, maybe even that the Green Party maybe, okay, but I act like it didn't even exist. Like I didn't give it a thought because I'm black, right? And that's brainwashed into your head. You're black, you're a Democrat. So, but when I did look at their platform, I thought, then why the hell am I a Democrat? What am I doing? Look at the documentary. Again, I'll leave it below if you guys haven't seen it. Let us know what you think about this video and about the documentary, and leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and that's it. Everybody have a good day.